Welcome back to my 5-part series about some of the best adventures that Norfolk has to offer its visitors. Over the last few videos, I've shared our cute tiny home holiday cottage, explored wells next to the sea, and jumped on a couple of boats. One being an organised tour to spot the seals, and another boat that was all ours for the day, allowing us to explore the Broads National Park at our own pace. In today's episode, I'll be in the national park, but this time exploring it on foot, going in search of more seals and the historic wind pumps. Along to the village of Horsey, and we parked up at the National Trust's Horsey Windpump, which is the windmill that you can see behind me. And from here there is a 5-mile round trip hike that we can do that goes out to the Horsey Beach, and fingers crossed we're going to get to see some seals. Hear something just rustling on the side of the footpath, and there's a couple of swans. So once we got to the gap in the dunes, it turns out that we didn't actually want to go up and through that because there is a viewing platform to potentially see the seals, if there are any, a little bit further down. So we are choosing not to go up onto the dunes quite yet, because if a couple of days ago at wells next to the sea was anything to go by, as soon as you're out on that exposed beach and the wind picks up, it is thoroughly freezing cold. So we're just trying to walk along the path on the other side of the dunes for a little bit of shelter, and then at some point I think we're going to cut through, and fingers crossed when we get to the viewing point we're actually going to see some seals. It looks like where we just came up onto the dunes there's only the one, but actually looking both north of the coast and south down the coast there's loads more, if my eyes aren't deceiving me, and I'm thinking that they're seals when actually they're rocks. So this is, I mean, seals aside, this is beautiful with the dune grass and I suppose like beaches where you don't have anyone on them. So I think this is going to be quite a nice enjoyable walk just to wander along, and then obviously you've got the bonus of the seals as well. Obviously you just never know when it comes to wildlife, it is a little bit of a gamble, but I think today has paid off. I love how along the beach you've got all of these different sections where they've put huge boulders and they've numbered them. This one here is number 38 that's got loads and loads of seals in them, and it just seems like, I don't know, they know, they're like, my friends are all at number 38 today, so that's where I'm going, because all of the other ones for like the next maybe 5 down are completely empty, and then you get to this one and there are literally hundreds in this one. I have no idea why. Maybe they all just like the number 38, who knows? The vast majority of the seals that come onto these beaches are grey seals. They do apparently get some common seals, but unlike their name, which is a little bit of a misrepresentation, they're not as common. Grey seals are far more commonly found within the UK. I believe that the waters around Great Britain and Ireland account for about 40% of the whole world's grey seal population. The grey seals come to these beaches in the winter to pup, I think is the correct terminology for it. So during the winter you can get those really, really adorable, fluffy, white baby seal pups, and they are at risk of dying because they're so reliant on their mothers for the milk, and they have to wait on land until the sort of fluffy white fur disappears and they get I suppose the skin that they have that allows them to be like waterproof within the water. Obviously we're not here in the middle of winter, so we can't see any of those adorable white seal pups, but that is apparently what happens here during the winter months. Having stood here and watched the seals for quite some time now, I just don't get it. They all seem to every now and again be fighting for space, and yet they've got such a long stretch of beach where so many seals haven't come ashore, and they've got all of this space in these other sections that aren't number 38. If they really don't like being around other seals, I personally don't understand why they don't just come ashore further down and further up the beach. Back on. So my predictions were wrong. It was actually far less windy on the beach. I ended up just going down to a t-shirt because the sun kept on coming out. But now as soon as we've got back on these sides of the dunes, the wind really picked up, so I'm back in the fleece again. One of the reasons why there are so many seals at this part, or why we have so many in this part of the world, is number one, we don't really have many predators for those seals, things like killer whales. We just don't have them in our waters. The second thing, unlike where we were in Scotland last summer, and I'll put a link to that if you guys haven't seen it, because it was another great day out of getting to see seals, there in the summer isles they were all perched up on rocks which were quite perilous, so during any kind of storms in the winter the young pups were at much greater chance of getting washed off of those rocks or bashed around and unfortunately killed. Whereas here, because you've got these big sandy beaches and then the grassy dunes, there's plenty of land for them to easily come up into, means that they're more likely to survive. Another factor is also the fact that we have so much food in our waters. There's plenty of the fish that seals like to eat, and so I think all of those factors, when put together, is what causes for our country and our landmass to have so many seals. Once we got to the Horsey Gap car park that's actually at the beach rather than the National Trust's car park at the Horsey Windpump, we've then come off of the coastal path, and we're now having to come down this rather dusty track which really kicks up dust when cars are going through. It's a little bit perilous when you've got two cars trying to pass and some pedestrians, so we've just been having to squeeze into the bushes. But what we've worked out is that if you're not a National Trust member, if you're wanting to park for the full day, you're better off coming and parking here at the beach because it's cheaper. But if you're only wanting to park for part of the day, so just for a few hours, it works out cheaper to pay at the National Trust car park at the Horsey Gap, which is particularly helpful if you're wanting to do the circular hike, and depending on how long you want to spend watching the seals and also how fast of a walker you might be. now rather dilapidated. Turns out that the windmills in this part of Norfolk weren't used to be able to grind down things that the farmers had been growing, but instead were used as a pump to be able to pump up the water that would then be used as irrigation in the farmers' fields. All the way around the fields that we've been walking, there's been ditches going down to those irrigation systems. They're still, I guess, in use today, and you might just be able to hear the squawking of the geese in the background, but a lot of wild birds are loving the fact that these irrigation systems still exist today. This walk's taken me by pleasant surprise. I was thinking it was going to be nice just to get out into the fresh countryside air, and was really looking forward to getting to the beach and potentially seeing seals, but coming across this old dilapidated windmill, getting to see all of the geese. There's been quite a few farmers' fields where we've got to walk in amongst cows and alongside sheep. Even just like the earth keeps on changing, so at the moment we've gone to like this really earthy reddish soil. Couldn't write this stuff. So our spring of 2021 has been incredibly cold. We had snow in like mid-April and it's been incredibly dry, so this trail is so dried out and mud's cracking, and it's what I would expect to see in July or August, not in very beginning of May. And of course, as soon as the bank holiday weekend comes along and we've booked somewhere, it decides to rain, and apparently it is going to start raining at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, so we'll keep on walking and make sure that we get back to shelter before the heavens decide to open. And we're back to where we started at the Horsey Windpump. Rather annoyingly, they've got a temporary caravan and also some kind of crane outside of it, so it just ruins any kind of nice photographic opportunities for it. But that aside, has been a beautiful walk, so we'll go the last few hundred metres back to the car. In the final episode of my Norfolk mini-series, I'll be undertaking a DIY Norfolk food tour, trying known favourites through to things that I've never tried before. If you've not done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel so that you can join me in my Norfolk adventures.